the country, what is the percentage of Jewish people to elected office at the national level, and see why is it so out of sync? If you don't have the numbers, who putting in office? We put them there. You know, like the great joy that came out of Atlanta after the election when the little preacher guy got elected, and he was so happy that his little Jewish friend also got elected. Why didn't they run a black man or woman for that office? Why did they have to give a seat in a black neighborhood to a Jewish person? He couldn't get elected with the Jewish and white vote alone. But we've been made to think in terms of these alliances that was used to use us rather than to help liberate us. So they asked the right question. Why haven't the Democratic Party done more for us? And that question is a good question if you ask the next question, or why haven't we who are in the Democratic Party done more for us? See, because we're the ones that's there. And the reason we haven't, because the identity, that's why they can play with this identity question. Because you can't go there and say, I'm black, but I'm a liberal. I'm black, but I'm conservative. I'm black, but I'm from the Caribbean. I'm black, but I'm from America. I'm black, but I'm Nigerian. Either you go in there as the black community or you don't. You can't go in this fragmented bunch of little ego-tripping people just trying to make something for themselves, give themselves some power and money so they rise up through the system. And Malcolm used to make a joke about that, people saying, I'm the first black one here. Well, that syndrome still exists. We have to come in a united manner and let the leadership of the instrument, the Democratic Party is not about a tool, it's an instrument. Now people say, well, we need to build a black party. Yes, we do, but we have not built one. And in the meantime, if you're in the middle of the water and you don't have a boat, unless you're going to become Jesus Christ, you better get on the boat that's there, okay? And right now, the boat that's in that water is the Democratic Party. And how do we use that boat for our interest? The Latino community is using that boat for their interest. The Jewish community is using that boat for their interest. The Asian community is using that boat for their interest. And now we've got the Arab community using that boat for their interest. Why haven't we been able to use it for our interests?
But here's the thing, you know, Professor Small, and I'm glad that you said that, but the counter argument to that is, now me working in media, there was something that Dr. Amos Wilson said in Blueprint for Black Power. He said that the Democratic Party would use black leadership and black media, and I'm paraphrasing now, as attack dogs against other black people who criticize the Democratic Party. And I'm finding that you might have a black media figure, someone that might be a black.
No, call it out,
American.
Reverend Al Sharpton. Why
Right.
are you going to stumble on it for? You're a journalist. Don't be stumbling around me.
Yes, right. You get it, okay, but Roland Martin, you know, if you
I don't
say,
know Roland as well, but I know Reverend Sharpton was given a national television show in prime time so that anybody that criticized President Obama would be attacked by a piece of tool that was very powerful.
and that's the concern, is that any time you raise say for example, you can raise a criticism of the Republican Party as a black person, but then as soon as you raise criticism of the Democratic Party as a black person, you get attacked.
It just goes to show that the whites who run the Democratic Party was very smart. They could use the few Negroes they had. The Roland Martin, the doctor, the Sharpton, and others didn't make up 10 people. Where was the rest of the 60 million of us? What were we doing? That we're going to let 10 people control the environment that we're in when we're 60 plus million strong? We have failed to organize our community. We have failed to practice the Pan-Africanism, whether it's practiced in North America or on the continent or in the Caribbean. We have failed because we have not taken into account a term I coined. Everybody ran away with it in 1992. It was called post-slavery trauma syndrome. Now I say it a little differently from others because I mean something a little differently from it. Post-slavery trauma syndrome, an election in Philly in 92, trying to explain the damage done. And you know what syndrome means, right? It means it continues. Okay, it hasn't ended and we just had some injuries. No, the thing that caused the damage is now continuing under our mental instructions. We are now the enslaver. We are now the colonizer. Our minds are. And that's why we have these arguments with ourselves, but we don't have an argument with the Klan. You know, we don't have an argument with the neo-Nazis. We don't have an argument with the Zionists. We have these arguments with ourselves, and none of the people engaged in the arguments have enough power to elect somebody to the local school board. And so the question is, how do we really understand what we should be doing? What is the political structure that we live in? How does it work? How do we make it work for us? If you do anything else, you're not doing nothing. Because what exists is the United States of America, the Constitution of the United States of America, the Congress of the United States of America, the executive branch of the United States of America, the judicial branch of the United States of America, the executive branch of the state of New Jersey, the legislative branch of the state of New Jersey, all right, and right down to the city of East Orange, the mayor of the city of East Orange, and he's got a city council under him, and they've got departments under them. That's how this works. Now, if you don't learn how all those things work, you ain't even in the game. You can sit around and criticize and all the things you want, but this is a mechanism to run a government that controls the economic, politics, and culture that affect all of our lives. And if you don't even know how it works, you ask the average person in this room who's their city council, and I bet y'all can't tell me who your city council person is. You know? Who's your school board president? Who's your area policy board president? Where is your voter registration office? Where would you go to learn how to put someone on the ballot? Where would you learn how to do a petition to get somebody on the ballot? How do you qualify somebody to run for political office in your area? Where do you find the criteria? Those are the things we better know. If you're going to play football, you can't run on that field with a basketball training. You got to run out there with football training. We're going to a football game as basketball players and wondering why we losing the game. You know, we have failed to organize our communities around the reality, the political reality we find ourselves in. We can dream of Marxist-Leninism all we want. We do not live in a Marxist-Leninist socialist country. Okay? We live in a capitalist country called the United States of America. Now, while you're waiting for your socialism, that's cool. Maybe somebody's socialism will come someday. That's all fine. But in the meantime, how do you provide food, clothing, shelter, and safety and security for yourself and your family? You've got to learn how the system works and what makes up the system. And then you have to target what part of that system you need to take control of in order to affect your daily lives. And what skills and training and tooling you're going to need for your group to do that. Because this argument is about the A dose and the D dose, and they can have that argument till the cows come home. Ain't nothing going to change. They're just children playing word games, you know. But if we want to have real change, we have to figure out.
Hold 1 second. Can someone please turn their phone down? Oh, I'm sorry about that, brother. Go ahead.
Okay.
Please, brother.
We live in the United States of America. It is structured a certain way. It works a certain way. We need to learn how it's structured and learn how it works, and we need to take control of that aspect of it that affects our lives in the communities we live in.
Okay, so Professor, you had said at the beginning that we're going to do our best, I'm paraphrasing, to get Vice President Harris in the White House. So the question that I'm going to ask, how will, and I've been asking this question on Facebook for weeks on both sides, but we're dealing with Vice President right now. How will a Kamala Harris White House benefit the African American community?
Very simply, because the Trump White House won't. And you can't provide me any evidence that will show that the Republican Party will give you any avenues to possibly having any power and influence over your destiny politically in this country. Because of the number of blacks in the Democratic Party, because of what they call the demographics of the Democratic Party's power bases around the country, it's almost always in the areas we live. If we get involved in that machinery, especially at the most local level, we can influence the pressures that's placed on those on the national level. But sitting here screaming at the person at the national level, but we can't do anything to injure them, slow them down, or stop them. Our conversations become meaningless. We don't even have the media to make us sound loud. You know? Ms. Harris and the Democrat, because remember, she's one lady. She's not going to be able to do anything. She'll sit at a table. Around that table, she's got a cabinet. That cabinet is going to be made up of people who were selected by the people who put the money up for the election. Those cabinet members will be carrying policy programming that comes from the different think tanks around the country and the world that support the economic agenda that's being advanced by the Democratic Party on behalf of the banking, investment houses, and the other wealthy people. That's what's going on. That's what we need to learn to understand. And all that's cool, because they got the money, they're going to do all of that. But how can we get the piece of that we need to take care of our community so the killings can stop? Why you don't see the Colombia drug cartels ravishing the Jewish community? Why? Because those people are organized. And they're not coming up and they're doing that to their peoples. They're not going to take that stuff. But they could do it to us because we don't control any power. We walk out of our door, the policemen don't look like us. We walk out our door, the district attorney may look like us, but the people who are all of 90% of the people under the district attorney who runs all those cases don't look like us. And it goes on and on and on because we are trying to have a conversation without building a power base from which to hold the conversation. And that means you must get control of the political office, of the social and cultural offices, anything that socializes you and your people in that community, anything that's structured. If it's a Salvation Army in your community, you should be running the Salvation Army. If it's a YMCA, YWCA in your community, you should be running it. And the policies that it carries out should be determined by the majority black people that's on the board that you work for. If you don't take power at that level, you're not going to affect nothing going on down in D.C. Nothing. If they ever hear your voice at all. You've got to take controls. There's somebody who started saying all politics is local. That is a very real statement. If you take control, and you can't take control of it if you don't take control of yourself. Now, Ababa was standing up here telling us how he cleaned himself up of alcohol and drugs and cigarettes all those many years, 38 years ago. What does that really mean? A drug addict and a drunk cannot run a community. They cannot even raise a family. So are we going to begin to address how to make us better people? And it doesn't matter what religion you use, all of them can work well. I could take Christianity and I can take Jesus and I can take the 12 disciples and I can break the 12 disciples down. I know how to do transliterations. They're 12 orishas. They're 12 sets of quality and attributes that a person who want to have the character of Christ need to develop in themselves. I want to take the orishas. They're not a bunch of gods flying around doing foolish things. Their quality and attributes, powers and forces you can find in nature, you can find in cosmology, you can find in the human character, or you can develop it in the human character so that you be a more perfect being. It's called socialization. All cultures do that to make themselves better people. And that's what a culture is. Culture from to cultivate. What is it? Cultivating the best of your ancestors into yourself. But if you don't even know the story of your ancestors or what their best is, how are you going to ever get it into yourself? History erases the mystery. Do you know your history? You know, do you know your history? Who are you sitting there in your living room? we know more about the basketball players' girlfriends than we know about our own mate's girlfriend or boyfriend. We know every point they made. But if somebody asks you, did you look at your son's report card this month to see what he made, what grades he made, or what comments the teacher had to say about your child's behavior? That's where we got to go. That's where we're failing. Because the person that's coming to the table making the complaint isn't even a person. Isn't even a person when he's viewed by a state. The state got to view the person in terms of who the person represents and what the person represents. You know? So if we don't figure out a way to create that body that we can represent and the ideas, principles, and concepts that they want to go in the hands of a congressman, in the hands of a senator, or in the hands of the president, we can have a conversation like this till sunrise. We have to figure we have been out organized because we are ignorant on how the system works. We've been out organized because we're ignorant of the fact that we have to work the system for ourselves. We have been out organized because we think culture is dancing and music and movies. That's not what culture is. Those are tools of culture. Culture is the ideas, concept, and principle you want those things to portray to you.
Well, Professor Small, I'm glad you mentioned that. You're speaking, of course, we hear Garveyism and we hear, Elijah Muhammad, we hear Martin Delany and so many others. But what I've found, for quite some time, I've covered these conventions across the country that are organized by educated black professionals, the Urban League, NAACP, Congressional Black Caucus.
Trained people, right. Not educated people.
I appreciate that. I'm glad you said that. National Association of Black Journalists, NBA. And I'm glad you said trained people, because whenever I've been at these gatherings, and I've written about this, and one or two of us may stand up at a plenary session, and we say some of the things that you're saying, and of course these are predominantly
and you come under attack.
That we come under attack, or people look at us like, oh, well, there's some excuse. We're finding...
Because having a degree...
And Democrats, oftentimes...
Having a degree in the white view of the world is not education if you're a black man.
Right, but I'm glad... Now, but Professor Small, some of these black folk that we're talking about now, and we talk about the base of the Democratic Party,
right,
would have hated Malcolm.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're there. My point is, you don't have another party. You're in a lake, almost said a bad word. You're in a river. You ain't got no life jacket. There's one boat there. Now, you can sit there and dream of the boat you want while your butt drowns, all right? Or you could take control of the boat that's there, all right? And right now, the Democratic Party, to the degree those black men and women who are in there and running a significant part of it, has struggled to gain that control based on the political knowledge and consciousness they have. I'm not going to condemn them, because those people probably as sincere as their heart will allow them to be sincere. They may not be fully tooled in the manner we wish them to be tooled, but they're there. And this instrument is there. We're in the United States of America. This is September. Well, we're going into September. Have we reached September yet?
No, this is August 30th.
We're still in August. But it's about to become September, October, November. They're going to have an election, whether we're ready or not. You understand? This election is going to happen. We've got to understand what, of all the people involved, the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, the Kennedy, I can never remember the poor brother, the preacher's name, but
Dr. West.
Dr. Cornel West. And Cornel's an old friend, so I'm cool. Probably, like he said, he's a Christian socialist, whatever that means.
Jesus, he always says he's a Jesus-loving free black man, Christian socialist. Yeah.
The Jesus thing can get overdone sometimes, And we've been there and done that. The bottom line is the only instrument